funny.
You're laughing, right?
That is so funny. Yeah.
It's gonna be phenomenal. Dr. Graf, welcome to Zen One Podcast. This is gonna be a fun conversation because I met you in person. I think it was October of no, was it?
Oh man, you
No,
got
no, March this
not
year.
my
It's got to be
expertise
this
in
year.
details. Yeah, I think it was this year, early this year, in Austin, Texas, right?
Yes, yeah. And it just happened that we were in this fancy hotel at the CE or whatever that was with Alistair, which is a great guy. I got to get in a podcast with him too. But
Oh,
it just happened that you and I sat next to each other and we started talking and you started sharing your story. And right away, I'm like, you got to share it with people. I got to record this stuff with you. So let's dive in. Like, how is your life? How's your private practice ownership going? And how is your surgery center going? Like, I'm excited to hear all of it.
yeah, man. It's all going perfect. We have no problems ever, and it's just rainbows
Ever.
and butterflies. That's it. Entrepreneurship, right?
Yep.
Uh, just kidding. No, man, God's been so good to me. It's things have been really hard lately, to be honest with you. Very, very hard as an entrepreneur, business owner. My business, I'm so grateful for the growth, but with the growth came a lot of problems and a lot of things that were revealed to me. And I this year, you know, I've grown exponentially as an entrepreneur um, because I've had to take a big step back clinically, restructure my business, and now I'm not 100% there yet, but it's taken a lot of work. But I've got really things restructured. Have a new legal team. I hired a CFO in house because of um, the administrative growth and it's been tough. It's been tough. It's taken a lot of. I don't lie. I don't enjoy that side of ownership.
The
Actually,
business side, right?
business side. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, but that's the hardest part for me is sitting down on my computer and sending emails. Man, like that is whew, it's tough. So I
Can
have
you can you just remind me what was the story of you being a general dentist first and then going into surgery?
so I'll keep this relatively short, but I was a general dentist. I graduated from dental school in 2019. I opened my startup practice in almost a year ago today, uh, August 28th of 2020. And I opened as general practice, and I was so busy, and I'm so grateful for that. But I was so busy, um, so quickly, and I very quickly burnt myself out on general dentistry to the point of talking to my wife, like, I don't know how I can do this anymore. Like, I have to find, something else. And that basically led to me finding that surgery was really what makes me the happiest. And I live in a underserved area for dentistry, but even more underserved for dental surgery. And so I was like, okay, if I don't make a change, then I'm gonna get out of dentistry soon, and that's gonna be terrible for my patients. And if I do make a change, like I can at least, serve a different audience or different patient base, but I will still be serving and on a higher level. So I created a marketing plan, despite all the people telling me that was a bad idea. I created a marketing plan, and I took all those fun surgery courses that I've been telling myself that I didn't have time for. Um,
Or the
and
money?
yeah, or the money, right? Yeah. And I did it. January 1st of 2022, I launched my new brand of Graf Dental Surgery, and we send letters to all of my patients and saying that, hey, we haven't forgot about you. If you're still a patient, like we will continue to serve you and see you for any work that you may need, but we're not going to be taking on new patients because I'm going to be focusing more on surgery, and quite honestly just didn't have the capacity to see um, new patients and do general dentistry.
So how was that switch? Like why
Yeah.
surgery?
Um, why surgery? Because I love it. Because God's given me a gift, man. I am good at it, and that's now I mainly do full arch surgery, and to change somebody's life in a day. There's no greater reward for me than to be a part of that. But so that's the real why. But of course, I had to be happy and serving. I was seeing like 30, 35 patients a day for general dentistry, and because I live in an area that's so underserved, and I care about people so much, and it was hard for me to like tell people no. But the reality is, like, I have a family, and man, I was going in on Saturdays because a friend of a friend had broken a tooth, and even though they'd been putting it off for 5 years, like theirs had a major problem, and so the transition was much easier than I thought. I could tell you I was quite stressed out because I had a lot of people telling me that it was a bad idea. But the greatest part about all this was my revenue doubled and my patient numbers decreased by half. Um,
So like
and that was
double,
because,
double.
yeah, I know, like, this doesn't make sense. This graph is not
Yeah.
supposed to be that way, right? But it was, and that's I was now doing like my production per hour was I actually would that be like 4x. So it was great from a revenue standpoint, financial standpoint, and that made it easier. But it was because I had a very thorough plan, and I did kind of rip the Band-Aid off. I felt like that's how it had to be. Um, and amongst all that too, I dropped every insurance plan that I had at the same time because I was like, insurance costs me 90% of my headache for my administrative side of my practice, and like I don't care. Like, I don't care with the repercussions. Like, I will build my practice back up if I lose all of my patients. Like, I know how to work really hard. I've started from scratch before, so I ripped the Band-Aid off, and that was a huge reason why my revenue doubled as well. Is because we learned that patients actually appreciate quality experience, and there are patients, despite what the world tells us, there are patients that are willing to pay for that. And so I just didn't want to deal with the patient who wants the cheapest option, and those patients are typically unappreciative and harder to work on, and they take more effort on my end. So I was making my practice about me a little bit more.
It's great. So I'm really curious how, like, it's from an entrepreneur standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to rip the Band-Aid and just do things from scratch. Like, that's my comfort zone, right? So instead of trying to fix the house, be like, let's tear down, put a new one, put a foundation, let's go, right? It's just a lot easier. Like,
Yeah,
you can think about it that way. But it's not easy for the team. So what was
yeah,
the transition like for your team? Did you lose anybody? Did anybody create challenges for you? Like, how was on that side?
yeah. I lost a lot of team members. You share with people your vision, and naturally they're gonna lose trust in you. I think over time, it's just the world brings doubt, but I stuck with my vision, and I knew that this transition was going to be hard on them, and it was tough on my culture, and I learned a lot as an entrepreneur throughout that, dealing with those cultural issues. But it takes a long time to get a great team, and like that's what God's plan was for me. Like, you have to have those bad employees. You've got to have that employee that gives you 12 hours notice that she's not coming back to work. Like, I had a treatment coordinator during that time. She 12 hours notice. One of my most vital members of my team texted me at 6 p.m. and said, "I'm going to take a job at the school and I have to start tomorrow." And after I had like tried to go above and beyond for her, I literally that morning I told her that I was going to cover the cost of her Invisalign because she was pregnant, and I know that she was stressed about her finances. And that was the one of the best things that happened to me, because it taught
Interesting.
me
Why? Hmm.
it taught me that no one's going to care about this as much as I care about this. And that at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, you can empower everyone, but you have to understand that there are going to be people that just don't get it, don't see your vision, and are going to let you down. And so rather than be like self-pitying and feeling sorry for myself, it was like, no, like now I got to turn my hat backwards. Like I was already working hard, but now I got to work harder, and I got to find a solution, because that's what good entrepreneurs do. And it's about empowering the right people. And so it stinks for her, because man, I saw more in her than she saw in herself. But she felt like taking a middle school job, uh, at the local school was the best for her. And so it's not my life, it's her life. I think she made a big mistake. Like I had a big vision for her, but she didn't have it for herself. So that's okay.
Right. Right. That happens. What's your team like? What does your team look like now? Like, who do you have? What roles do you have? How many you have?
Yeah, man. My team looks totally different from a standpoint of now I actually have roles and responsibilities. Now I actually have a very clear picture of what my hierarchy is. And I've been, I have been really laser focused this year in creating that, because I had a lack of systems. I worked so hard that I didn't actually have the time to organize my practice. And so administrative side of my practice. So like for 3 years, I didn't have like clear roles and responsibilities. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it was like I never had an issue with revenue, because thank the Lord, like patients always had new patients coming in. I live in a small town and we treat people really well. So like I never had that issue. Um, and it was always a matter of like I know that I could, like I was just working hard. Like I know that I could just work hard if I lose someone here and there. And looking back now, I realized that I was uh working so much harder than what I needed to. If I would have just stopped and defined roles and responsibilities and made it clear, like created an auditing system, and then I could have had my own system manage my team. But I didn't. I was a very young entrepreneur and had to learn the hard way. So now I have a pretty drawn out hierarchy where I have an operations manager who is my well, I have an executive assistant that I work directly with that helps me with emails and helps me on the administrative side and setting up meetings and my schedule. I have an operations manager who is in charge of making sure that she's in charge of my sales and marketing, and also my administrative side or the operations side of my practices. I have a chief financial officer who is plays the role of a CFO, who's in charge of course, all my finances. I have my operations manager is oversees the treatment coordinators in the hiring process. She works directly with my marketing manager. I'm really excited about this one, but we just created a new position as a surgical coordinator. And what that position is going to look like is that person is going to answer every single phone call that comes from our Google ads and our Google leads. And she's going to be the one that's doing all of the consults with me. Because I'm learning that, the psychology of the consult process, there's when you're trying to portray to patients that, hey, this is $50,000, but actually you can afford this, and this is why. It takes a special type of person, and you can't have somebody who's not empathetic and not well spoken, or if you're unorganized in this process at all, like you won't close these cases. And so the surgical coordinator is going to be in charge of getting surgery scheduled, and that's a cool position. It's highly incentive based position, and I'm really hoping that's going to change a lot of things for me. What else? I'm a big so on my clinical side of things. I have 2 associate doctors that work for me now. I have a surgery team. I am a very big believer that surgery needs to be a team, and you need to have a specific assistant that works with each surgical doctor. Now, mind you, we're doing a lot of like really large surgeries, like full arch surgeries, some difficult cases. So Maybe a little different if you're extracting a couple teeth here and there, but for my surgery teams consist of 2 assistants, so the surgery lead and then a surgical assistant, surgical lead assistant and surgical assistant, and that's with every case with every doctor. So the surgical assistant kind of is the person that goes and gets something if you don't have it, the person that opens implants, the person that can just be available, like a little floater almost. And the lead assistant, she's focused on the surgery, and that's it. You're holding, your suction, but you're working with the doctor directly, and it's such a crucial role because good quality surgery, it shouldn't just be the doctor. Like we instill within our team of it's about working together as a team. There are things that you can see on your side of that table or the patient that I can't see, and we create an environment that it's about the patient, first and foremost. And we're doing high quality surgery, and sure, I got good training for all of this, but I'm nothing without good quality surgical assistance. So the surgical lead we empower everyone to try to get up to that level, but it's hard to get there. It takes a really driven person, and you have to be good at what you do, obviously, but it's more so of the work ethic that you want to put in. And then below that, in our entry level to get onto our surgery team is like a sterilization technician level. So we just recently created a hierarchy of that, and how we're going to hire to that, and we prefer hiring inexperienced assistants that are driven. And within my system, if you're driven and hardworking, you will be very successful. And if you're not, it will show, and you will not be successful. You will either be stuck in that sterilization role, or you probably won't be working very much longer. Just leave it up to the assistants themselves.
Cool. This is interesting. So the way it looks like the ladder is you got sterilization tech, then you have a kind of like a floating dental assistant, then you have a surgical lead assistant, then you get 2 associates that each get the 2 of the surgical team members.
Yeah, so each associate has his own team.
And the
I
team
think that's
consists
really,
of 2
really
DAs.
important. I work with the same A1 assistant every surgery because she knows my tendencies
Yep.
better than anyone else. And
Yep.
so is she capable of working with the other doctor? Yes. But this is really high level surgery, and I need her to know his tendencies.
Your style.
Yeah. So we're putting zygomatic implants and pterygoid implants in, and the reality is that this is very dangerous. There is a chance, your patient, if you do something wrong, or the assistant does something wrong, this could affect the patient's life. We take it to that level of seriousness because and then God forbid an emergency happens, I have to have somebody on my team that knows how I work and react, and would not be willing to do the surgeries I do without somebody that knows my muscle memory.
Right.
Very
So then you got the surgical teams, 2 associates, and then it goes to the admin, right? So you got the ops manager and you got the CFO.
Yeah, ops manager, CFO, and then amongst my exec team also is my marketing manager. She's an all-star, and she just doesn't need to be managed. So she has a different brain, man. There's marketing. I have a marketing brain myself, but I want her involved in my executive meetings because of her brain and how she thinks, and I care very much about my brand. I think it's incredibly important, especially in the full arch world. And so we always want to make sure whatever I'm doing and the decisions I'm making, we're portraying it the right way, and our marketing aligns with that. So she's kind of on the same tier, and she's earned that with her hard work ethic and expertise.
How can you walk us through what was your process of getting 2 associates?
Yeah, I think I look at people, and what drives people, especially on the doctor side of things. And so my process was, I'm grateful to teach at Implant Pathway from time to time, and you get to be around a lot of doctors, and there's doctors that we all meet them. That you just maybe it's just me, but just obvious what drives them. And so I look for doctors that are driven for the patient and are driven to do a lot of surgery or just love what they do, have a passion for the work that they do. And within my system, that works well. So I had Dr. Culberson, my associate. I caught back up with him at a surgery course at Pathway, and I have this thing that I do where if I ever meet somebody that I feel like I would either hire or I say I would partner with, I write their name down on a little post-it note and I have it on my desk. And it's people that I'm like, this person just thinks differently and is driven by the right things. And I'm not saying like driven by money is bad. I'm just saying like within my system it is like it doesn't work because it's you know if you're driven by doing the right thing and doing incredible dentistry, like the money will come. That's in my opinion second nature. But so yeah, I met back up with Dr. Culbertson at a surgery course, and it was I wrote his name down and put a post-it note, wrote his name down on my post-it note, and like 2 months later, he calls me on like a Tuesday or something like that, and he's like, "Hey, Dr. Graf, the practice I was trying to buy just fell through. I have no idea why I'm calling you, but I just feel like you may be able to offer me some advice." And I was like, "Whoa, yeah, man, I'm sorry about that. Like, it's probably a good thing that all this happened." And then just kind of felt like God was telling me to pop the question of like, "Hey, have you ever considered like, would you consider coming down and working with me?" He's like, "Yeah, maybe consider that." And so, we not there, but I told him to like think about that. I didn't feel like I was ready for an associate. I was not actively seeking one. It was just I got this name, written on my post-it note, and like for me, like you don't turn people down like that. And that was that was what I told myself. And so I was like, if he is actually willing, like I will create a business that is two associates or two doctor business. So that's what I did. And I think he was back in my office. I don't know the exact answer to this, but I think it was like within 3 months he was working at my office full time.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I mean, to do that, I had to take a little bit of a step back myself to say, okay, I got to be okay with him coming in and doing a little bit of what I'm doing. But it was also like I knew I could up my marketing a little bit more, and we were fortunately pretty daggone busy. So he came in and very quickly, he didn't need a lot of surgical training. About the only thing at the time that he could do that I could do that he couldn't was extramaxillary implants. And really I didn't have the practice that you needed two doctors for that. So I slowly taught him over time how to do what I do, and got to the point, I'd say within 6 months, there was really nothing that he couldn't do that I did. And that was because he was already super trained as a clinician. And in my opinion, driven by the right reasons. And within my system, you're going to succeed if you're driven for the betterment of the patient and for just doing high quality dentistry.
So I have some questions here. How many names on sticky notes are still in your office? 4 more? All right, that's really cool. I thought it would be like 10, 12 names that you still have there that you
No,
haven't reached out.
I there probably should be. I don't know. Like there probably should be. I haven't gone back to that post in a while, but man, I've met a whole
Yeah.
lot of amazing individuals since.
Yeah. So what do you do? Like you look at those sticky notes and do you like visualize like, all right, that person, that position, that would be so cool. And then send the positive signals and then it comes back to you?
Okay. I mean, I'm not. It's simply for me, and I don't write those names down there like saying I hope that they come. No,
Right,
I
right.
just write the names down and say, you know, God, if your will is to bring them in front of me, like I'm telling myself, this is me holding myself accountable. Like when Chase called me, I was like, that's all I could think about was like, of course your name's written down on my post. Like I don't have time for an associate. I don't know how to have an associate, but your name's written on my post-it note. So yeah, you want to do this? Like, okay, told myself I was going to. So I guess.
Yeah, let's
Uh,
make it happen.
yeah,
So, um, a lot of doctors struggle finding associates.
yeah.
Why do you think so?
Well, I think that they don't really know where good associates come from, and I'm not sure. I would challenge the doctors, like, well, what kind of associate do you want? And by that I mean like actually draw them out, draw like is it males, females, young, old, how many years they practice, what's their expertise. I think when I was very clear, like defining what it would take to be an associate in my practice, and like I could eliminate about 90% of people by just they have to be trained surgically, and then for me it's just like finding the person that's trained surgically and is driven by the right reasons. So why can doctors not find associates? I don't think they know how to look hard enough. I think that they depend on these people who headhunters that hire, uh, you know what I mean, people who recruiters that bring doctors in, and maybe that can work. But the recruiter doesn't. The recruiter gets paid to make this happen. So the recruiter is always going to talk highly of the doctor, right? And I would say that most practice owners don't take the time to get to know the associate and learn what drives the associate. So, um, and then also like we have an incredible resource of these dental schools of these kids that are graduating and think that they've got to go DSO route. Like the schools push like residency and DSO. And it's like, what? Why? Like, so go to the schools. If you have a great practice and you do great things, and you think your practice would be great for doctors, and like, man, put your camera in front of your face and make a video and send it to schools and say, hey, is anybody aligned with this? If you do, here's my number. I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. What do you, like? We could spend a lot of time on this, but at what point do you think like a practice is ready for an associate? And do you think it's usually earlier than most people pull the trigger?
Well, you're asking somebody who I would I would say that I was very unprepared to have an associate when I first did. But to me, I'm not sure if that's an area just like a startup practice. I'm not sure if you can ever be fully ready, especially for your first one. Like there's just things you kind of just got to learn the hard way with your associate. Um, but I also think there are numbers, and I don't know them, but there are numbers that say you are ready for an associate when you reach this. I'm just a little bit of an outlier because I have a surgery based practice, and so if I had a general dentistry office, then I think that decision should be based more on numbers and how many employees you have, how many new patients are wanting to schedule that you can't get in, how long you booked out. I think that answer can be very simple and be made with numbers, but for me, it wasn't.
Then on that note too, do you think it's always required when you bring an associate to loosen up your schedule or even a lot loosen up your schedule so that your associate is successful and then you? Or do you think there's a room for, no, I'm going to take all this cool cases and you're going to do feelings and other
Yeah,
stuff?
man, I think that is such a good question, my friend. I really do. I wish more people would ask it. Because yes, I think that if you're going to have an associate, like you got to understand what drives your associate. And for me, it was like all my associate wants to do is surgery. Like the worst thing that I could do for him in his career is to bring him into my practice and not keep him busy. Like he would have he didn't it's not like he didn't care about how much he was getting paid, but he he got a he actually took a pay cut to come work for me because I told him, I was like, dude, I'm going to keep you busy, so much so that I will make myself less busy in order to keep you busy. And so, yes, I think the doctors need to be willing to do that. Like, if you're going to spend the money to get an associate, like, you're crazy for not trying to keep the person busy and happy, right? So, but then again, there are some associates that they want to work a couple days a week, and that's fine. That's just how it is. But if you get the associate that's usually, it seems like I could relate to someone coming right out of school, because when I come out of school, I was like, I'm broke as a skunk. I wish, like, dental school don't let you run at all. They you just crawl the whole way. And I was like, I was looking forward to just being like overwhelmed with patients when I first got out. Honestly, like running 2 columns, it was trial by fire for me. And I don't know if that's for everybody, but I was just so excited just to get out and do a ton of dentistry. And I could care less what my production percentage pay was, to be honest. Um, it was about like what office could keep me busy. I had one of my best friends took a job that paid like 35% of production, and he was like, "This is awesome, awesome contract." And he sat on his phone like all day long. Like he would do like 2 crowns in a week, and that was it. And I'm like, okay, well, this math is easy, right? You do $1,000 a day, and I take home 25%. You do $100 a day, and you take home 35%. Like, do that math,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's looking back, no brainer. But people coming out of school, I didn't know that, and I had a business background. Like, I didn't think about it like that. I can tell you that mostly all my classmates thought about it the wrong way. So, getting a little
Why
off track
though?
with the question, but
But why though? Like, why coming out of the dental school, why is the 35% your goal? I think,
well, because
again, like, we can talk about this all
system is
day, but I
broken,
feel
man.
like it's like you, out
Broken.
of the dental school, you don't know anything.
You don't know anything. But think about this, and gosh, this is probably not going to be a very popular answer here, but the individuals that are teaching in dental schools, not all of them, but a lot of them, like, because they didn't really do well with private practice, and they're it seems like they're pumping into these kids that, like, they're not ready for the real world, and you have to go the residency route, and you've got to go the DSO route, because private practice is so scary, and you just won't make it. And it's like, what?
It's
No,
opposite.
you just gotta find the right one. And they value that, like, it's important that you get paid what you deserve. And um but like my friend found out the hard way, it's like it doesn't matter what you're paid if they don't keep you busy. So why are we not asking the questions of, like, well, how do you plan to keep me busy? How do you plan to market me? What's your expectation for how much I'm gonna produce my first week, month, year? Like, when I sat down for my interviews, and my goodness, I would recommend this to every new dental student looking for a job. Define your goals to the practitioner. I said, I want to produce $1 million my first year. Do you think that your practice is capable of allowing me to do that? Because I'm really hardworking, and I am somebody who wants to be busy, and I believe that if you give me the opportunity to do that, I would be able to do it. And I had, I it's been a while. I think I interviewed maybe like 4 different places, and I remember all but one laughed at me when I said that. Like, they could, like, yo, this guy's arrogant. He thinks he's gonna do $1 million his first year. Uh, but I had one guy, and this is where I chose to work, because he said, "Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think I can put $1 million worth of work in front of you, and that would be a lot of work for a new associate." He was a very experienced entrepreneur with new grad. He's like, "But man, if that's your goal, then I'll do that." I'm like, "Of course." It's like, because he's a smart entrepreneur. It's like, you got someone sitting in front of you saying, like, "I want to make you a lot of money. Can you
Let's
keep me
go.
busy?" And 3 of them laughed at me. Like, what are you thinking, man? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
That's crazy.
if I had an associate tell me that, I'd be like, "When can you start, man?" Like, heck yeah.
Yeah. I think it's not it's the associates or the dental grads that don't ask the right questions. And I think it's the practice owners that are not ready for that. Like imagine, I don't know, somebody in 45, probably no, it's like 50, 55. They're like sitting and thinking, all right, I'm taking half of Wednesday off. I'm taking Friday off. This kid is going to come in asking for a meal in production. Shoot, I'm going to spend how much in marketing? That means I got to get the marketing team, and my buddies are asking me to go to Aruba and play golf with them. Like, really? Like, come on, Dr. Graf, you really want to do that? Like, and I think it's like that's that thing that's the challenge of private practice ownership is like they're not all run as businesses, right? So, like, if you want to, like, and I think that's where people lose to DSOs, rightfully so, is like if you're not running a practice like a business, that means your team is not growing, you don't get the right associates, you don't treat the right patients, like you're not doing all the right things. But if you are looking at it as a business, you're constantly growing, you're constantly improving. Your goal with your bodies will come later. Like, don't worry about it. Like, once you have all the right systems in place and you have associates in place, you'll get to that place. But it's like, how do we get people to think that way?
Yeah, man, I think that those doctors that don't think like that are they're gonna learn the hard way, and they're never gonna be able to find a good associate, and they're gonna have trouble. I'm a small town, so like I see it that they have trouble selling their practice. They can't get anybody to move down. I'm 2 hours away from the nearest airport, and yet like I'm the only one within an hour who even has an associate because they all say the same thing. We can't get somebody to move down here. Well, what a weak mindset that you have. Like, change to get, like, make yourself attractive to somebody. Like, learn what these associates want. Like, they want to be busy. They want, like, dentistry is technology is cool. And they think the same thing. Like, they just got drugged through dental school, and it's at a snail's pace, and they're just ready to get out and run. I mean, at least the right ones are. They have no money. They like
Have student
the best thing
loans.
you can
Got
do
to
as
pay
an
off the
owner
student
is to
loans.
make them a lot of money. Like
Yeah.
make your associate make so much money that they'll never want to leave,
Yeah.
because for every dollar they make, you're making two, right? Maybe one,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but you've done no
That is
work.
so cool.
Take the risk and hire them.
Yeah. Do you see any other like challenges with private practice owners? Like you come across a lot of people, you teach surgery, and just like curious from your point of view, like what can be improved in the private practice ownership?
In terms of the owners or the environment for associate, what do you
Probably the mindset of the owners
okay?
or any mistakes that people make that you now have seen and you're like, yeah, that needs to change.
Well, I mean, I think that people spin their tires in mud for years and years because they think that they'll never be ready for associates. And I think that, or they're scared of like what happens if I hire an associate and he leaves? Like, that sucks. But you turn your hat backwards and you figure it out. Like, this is life, right? Like, they're so scared of taking a risk that they never do it, and that's so unfortunate. Um, but at the end of the day, you can't be responsible for every single patient that walks in your office. If you do, then you'll have a great practice, but you'll have a ceiling, and you'll never be able to get past your ceiling. So, and for that, like, there's some doctors that don't mind that, and that's fine. They're solo practitioners the whole career, and um, a lot of respect for those people. But I think most entrepreneurs and private practice owners, want to leave a legacy, and to do that, you have to be able to teach people to do the things that you're so good at. Um, you know, like, you have to learn to empower people, and you you have to swallow your pride, and that there are people who can do things the same and even better than you.
Better.
And if you're really smart, you look for those associates, and you humble yourself, and you learn from them and how they practice. But I just think that it's all mindset, and people think it's risky, but like it blows my mind because dentistry is so it's not risky. Like dentistry is profitable. Do it the right way. It's not rocket science. Just treating people right.
Yeah. What's your take on associates choosing or picking like the stuff they want to work with, like supplies, hand pieces, instruments, anything like that, that they have preferences on? Are you flexible on it, or you have a set list and they just got to use it?
Yeah, I'm definitely flexible. But at the end of the day, I'm going to make that decision. So I sit down. Well, for example, my new associate, he's been working for me for about a month. He's a baby grad. Um, and so I take that as like he knows next to nothing about dentistry. But you could talk to about anybody, and he just handles himself really well and professional. And I told him, I said, look, the number one thing that I will never compromise is the quality of treatment and care for my patients. And so this is the standard that I have, and this is the standard that if you're going to continue to work here, that you will have to uphold. Um, and I will share with you what I like to use and the technology, and the supplies and my protocols. But it's important that you take what I have, and if you want to change um, the way that you go about things, so long as the end result is the same quality, like I'm in support of you doing. Like so, um, uh, I'll have a usually when I got my first associate, it was like his burr system was really weird, and he wanted all these weird burrs, and I'm like, okay, not me, but I bought him everything that he wanted. He wanted to try a new uh, endo system, and so I ended up purchasing that for him, and beyond that's what we use now. Um, so I learned a little bit from him there, but I don't mind at all if they want to come to me and say, hey, I think this technology would be really good in my hands, but you better have a reason, and if it is a benefit to the patient, in my practice, my office, I'll almost always say yes to that and be in support of it.
What about assistants? Like, what's your process of training assistants to do what you guys do?
Yeah. The so we basically we set up a really we're trying to systemize this at this point, brand new system for this, but um, in the past it's been I'm gonna hire the best, most hardworking, driven assistant, the assistant that when the patients go home at the end of the day and is walking out and looks over to her right and sees something on the floor, the assistant that stops, goes over and picks it up because that's what's in the best interest of the practice. The people who do things behind closed doors that you would want that represent your core values. So that's one, a requirement of my assistants, but two, it's just I don't it's not that I don't care about your resume, but I hire people, and I have amazing assistants who had never been assistants before, um, because I think assisting programs are great, and when you can find somebody that works really hard and has been through a program and has that base knowledge, that great, that bonus points. But to me, I think that I would rather just somebody, I don't care if you worked at Wendy's.
Fresh.
So if you know how to treat people well and you can work
Yeah.
really hard and you can work as a team and you can let me challenge you, like I'm always challenging my assistants, like, well, what do you think my treatment plan is going to be? Or why do you think I just did that? You know, teaching them to think for themselves. I think if you can find somebody who's willing to learn and be a sponge like that, man, they're empower those people because that they can make a huge difference. And I always thought like, well, the only one that can do this stuff, perfectly and on the highest level is myself. And what a stupid thing to say, right? I started letting assistants do more things for me and empowering them and teaching them how to do it. And man, it made my life, it changed everything for me.
Right.
Um, it's what a immature entrepreneur I was when I said those things.
We had to go through it. We all have to go through it.
Had to, yeah.
We all think that, hey,
Had to.
there's no one else that can do this better.
Yeah.
Right. So
And
if
then
I
you're at
don't
the
do it, the
ceiling of
world will fall apart.
yeah, yeah, you know how Alex you were talking. So then you're at this ceiling of complexity, like until you finally just like hit yourself in the head, like, are you kidding me? I don't need to, you know, I don't know. I could be a good example. Like, I don't need to make every temporary crown. How would I just like take the time to teach them how to do it properly, and then I could save myself all this time in the future? It's a really simple concept.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so cool. Um, I guess as we start wrapping up a little bit here, what's like this the theme of the podcast, the theme of what I do is to help private practice stay private, right?
Yeah,
And my avenue is supplies and back office operations and streamlining the back office operations. You've talked so much about roles and responsibilities. Probably somewhere you got the checklist. When I met you, you were so stressed about hiring COO, Chief Operating Officer. Like, what is it about operations that people get wrong? Like, why do you stress about it so much? Like, isn't it simple? Like, as long as you care about surgery and the patient, like, why worry about that stuff?
yeah. Well, I can tell you why I got it wrong or how I got it wrong was I was working so hard clinically, seeing so many patients, and I take on all the prosthetics too. We have our own lab, and so I would do surgery all day, and then I would spend, time after work working on the lab, and I like just never had the brain capacity to like sit down in front of my computer and write out roles and responsibilities. It was like I was exhausted, and I was so grateful that my business grew, but like it was at the expense of like I was pretty unorganized in the back end. Like, you
Who
know, I
cares?
yeah, like my I was so blessed to have consistent patients, and my revenue was, we've been profiting for so long that it's like I didn't realize that what was slipping through the cracks, and like my collection percentage wasn't that high, and you teach people how to do it, and you put a system in place, and they follow it for a week, but my auditing system sucked, so they followed it for a week, and then after a week, they stopped, and it took me 2 months to realize they stopped. Like, what do you mean we haven't been calling them to collect? Like, what? I thought we put that system in place. Like, oh, I forgot about that. Okay. So for me, why did my operations fail? Well, didn't have the capacity to put the right time into it, and because I didn't know what I was doing when I first opened my office, like it wasn't properly organized, and so as growth came, it became more unorganized and harder for me to get to it, and so it took me taking 100% step back from clinical. Like I for a month and a half, I knew I had to do this. But I told my associate, I said, I need you to take over all of the patients and prove to me that deserve equity. And I said, dude, the ship is yours. I have to work on the back end of the practice. And like Alistair said, I'm on the black ops team now. And I hated doing that. Like I hated it. I enjoyed a little bit more time I had with my family, but man, I just want to be in the surgery room. That's what I'm good at. It's what I liked it, and like, but that's what it took. It took a month and a half for me to step back, no surgery, no patients, restructure everything, hire the right people in place, and it was because for 3 years I just ignored the problem.
But I still think you're not giving the answer. Like, why? What went so wrong in those 3 years that you felt like you needed to do it? Is it just a thought that you're not organized, or something was really happening that you weren't organized? That you felt the consequences?
No, I mean I felt the consequences because as I'm taking on bigger cases, uh, the lack of collections or the mistakes become much bigger. And when, for full arch specifically, like you have months that patients just walk in and have money and they pay, and that's great. But you also have months where it's like, we've had 8 consults in the last week and none of them scheduled. Like, gosh, this kind of seems unfair. Or like, man, like just waves. And it took it took 3 straight months of just like well underproducing what our average was. And you know what expenses do during that time? They don't typically go down. Yeah, they're going this way. And so it was like, holy crap, I don't have a choice. Like for the the life of my practice, like I got to take a step back and fix this. And that's what I did. I was entrepreneur. Like I was scared to death for my practice because outside looking in, everybody thinks it's all rainbows and butterflies. I'm an entrepreneur. I make so much money. It's just, man, he's got the life. Like, no,
But you
not all.
do you do have the life, right? Like the one thing is people like sometimes try to paint a picture of like this is difficult and this is this and that. I'm like, but I made a choice. That's my life that I
Yeah,
choose. And the great thing about it is like, yes, it's difficult, but I wouldn't do anything else.
yeah,
Right. So like I'm blessed. This is amazing. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's hard, but I love it. Like I can't wait to get up in the morning and go.
yeah,
So yeah, it's difficult. And if you think that I'm having fun, yeah, I am having fun. If you think
yeah,
that it's the best thing that happened to me, it's true. It is. Like, and another thing that I actually got in a small argument yesterday with a person in dentistry, that um the guy was like, I do it all for my kids. I'm like, do you? Do you really? Like I don't. Like I do it for me because I love it so much. My kids don't care if I go take a full-time job or I go and work at my company. They don't care. Like they don't know the difference. My wife, she cares because of me, because I'm happy. But like I stopped saying like I do it. I did maybe once, but it never felt comfortable for me like that.
yeah,
I do it for my kids. I do it for I do it for me. The
yeah.
outcome is for my family.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, my friend.
But I do it for me
Yeah,
because I freaking love it. Like, don't put me in the shoes of like, go work for this company. I would fail
me too.
and my life would be miserable and my family would be miserable.
I love it, man. I'm the same way. It's not always, fun. There were days, and the irony of this is when we were in Austin, Texas, I was that was when it came to the realization that I have to make a big change in my administrative side. And you know what? Of course, that's when all the private equity starts knocking on your door of like, hey, um, we were we would be interested in your practice. And I'm really very sincere about this. I'm really grateful for your courage and looking at me and saying you don't want to do that, because that was a point as my entrepreneur journey where I'm like, man, I don't know if I can really handle this. Like, this is, a lot of self doubt. And you saw through it. You're like, nah, dude, look how much you've done. But I was like, just looking at the
Yeah.
hurdles in front of me, and I was like, I don't know about collection. I don't know, how to. What does an executive team look like? Like, who do I hire to help me out? But it's I figured it out, and I'm so grateful that you gave me that advice.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
That's the funny
um,
part. I think
you
it was in the
basically
car
asked
when I
me,
dropped you off at the
no, you're not
airport.
going to do that, and I'm like,
Yeah,
it
I
kind of
could say
sounded
that.
really been sounded like a good idea, and you're like, yeah, yeah, you're not going to do that, and you're like,
Yeah.
don't do
Yeah.
it, okay?
Because
Like,
you're young. Like you
yeah,
have so many years. Like I do like this podcast, Bulletproof Podcast. So Pete and Craig, they always talk about it. Like I give them so much credit for this. You sell the practice. Cool. You got the pile of money. I don't know how big it is. It doesn't matter. But you got to deploy the pile of money somewhere. And then what? You're going to start now learn about stocks, Bitcoin? Like what are you going to do? When you practice, it's growing. Like every year it can grow. Like that's reasonable. Like you can control that. That's number one. Number two, what are you going to do as the person if you sell? Like what, go work for an associate as an associate like you would like go work for the DSO. Like no, you have so many more years to go. Like
dude, yeah,
you have a badass practice. Like it's
thank you, man.
huge. It's awesome. And then you get to play with so many. And there's another thing that I just listened. I don't forgot from who. Like when you small, people say you got small problems. When you big, you got big problems. But people don't think about when you small, you have small fun. When you big, you got big fun. Big fun
Yeah,
is like, hey,
yeah,
I'm gonna hire this CFO or CMO, and we have $100,000 budget on marketing per month.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with it? Are we going to
Yeah.
give out Teslas to people? Like, that's so much fun. People think about big business, big problems, but it's also big fun that you don't get to play with when you're small.
Stakes are higher for sure, and I learned that the hard way, like with my expenses. But I'm right on board with you, man. And that's what I think you saw in me that I didn't
Yeah.
even see in myself. It was like, if I would sell to private equity, if I sell private equity, like, I would have never been happy. Like because what really drives me is empowering people and making all the decisions. Like, I make the decisions because I'm good at it. Like, I'm a natural leader, and man, I would have been so unhappy if that would have happened. So yeah, you're right. It's fun. It's fun to be able to say, you know what, that technology, while it's expensive, it's going to directly affect the predictability and the patient experience, or just, it's going to directly affect my results, and it can improve them even just a little bit. Like, as the owner, you have the ability to do that, and especially as you grow, you have more of an ability to make those cool decisions. And um, yeah, so that's I love that you said that. But with that, yeah, it's not always easy. I learned that if you're not really organized, then your expenses can really sneak up on you, because your expenses when you're small are more manageable, and when you're getting, like, we're doing a lot of full arch cases, and um, our implant invoices did triple than what it used to be. So instead of, I'm spending $10,000 a month, we're spending $30,000-$40,000 a month on implants. It's crazy. But so if you're not structured, and you're not prepared for those expenses, they can come at the wrong time, and that's what happened for me. It came at the wrong time, where I wasn't getting as many cases scheduled, yet my expenses were still growing, and so, less revenue, but same fixed and variable expenses sneak up
I'm
on you real
back.
fast.
I'm back.
You're back.
Oh my
I just
God.
kept talking.
I know you did. I felt so bad. But yeah, this is fun. This is real fun.
Oh, man.
Like, we should convince people to keep their practices going. Like, we're just getting started. Technology is
Yeah,
just getting
yeah. You ready
introduced.
for
Like,
getting to coaching?
yeah, let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Let me write your
Any
name on the post-it note.
Yeah. Any departing thoughts?
Any
Like,
what?
if we wrap this up, any thoughts for people, like, about your journey and what? Am I losing you again?
And you're really okay. Caught just a little bit of that. You're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, it's horrible.
There we go.
So as we wrap this up, any thoughts that you want to share with people before we leave?
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur is tough, but it's worth it. And you got to lean on people who do things better than you, have done things like that, been entrepreneurs in the past, and got to lean on each other, because it's awesome, but it's not always awesome. It takes a lot of hard work and outside the box thinking, I think. So, considering entrepreneurship, do it. It's worth it. Invest in yourself, because it pays off big time.
It sure does. Sure does. Dr. Graf, this was fun. I'll make sure to not lose anything. I'll chop it up. It'll be great. I'll let you see it before it goes live. But I'm super grateful.
Please do, man.
I'm excited that we got connected, and I'm excited to see how you continue to grow and stay friends with you. It's awesome. It's awesome
Yeah.
to see you grow. Yeah.
Appreciate you, brother.
Cool. Thank you so much.
No problem.